Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whatever time it is, wherever in the world it is that you are. Welcome once more to Alexandra Mayer's Live and my page by page reading and commentary of the Bible, Modern English Version. Today we are going to jump into Genesis 18, Genesis chapter 18, which goes over Isaac's birth being foretold. So let's go ahead and get started. The Lord appeared to Abraham near the great oak trees of Mamre while he sat in the tent door in the heat of the day. Abraham lifted up his eyes and looked and saw three men standing across from him. When he saw them, he ran from the tent door to meet them and bowed himself toward the ground. He said, My Lord, if I have found favor in your sight, do not pass by your servant. Please let a little water be brought, and wash your feet and rest yourselves under the tree. I will bring a piece of bread so that you may refresh yourselves. After that, you may pass on, now that you have come to your servant. And they said, So do as you have said. So these weren't really just men who appeared before Abraham, just to clarify. And he was able to tell by their appearance, which was why, he basically started gushing and was like, Oh, let me help you. Here, come hang out here for a while. These were messengers sent by God. And right away, Abraham was able to tell for some particular reason. But the Bible doesn't really go into that as to why. So Abraham hurried into the tent to Sarah and said, Quickly, prepare 3 measures of fine flour, knead it, and make cakes. Then Abraham ran to the herd and took a choice and tender calf and gave it to a servant, who hurried to prepare it. He then brought butter and milk and the calf that he had prepared and set it before them, and he stood by them under the tree while they ate. And I really love reading the Bible because it really puts so much into context when it comes to modern conveniences. Because keep in mind, Sarah had to bake some bread because they had guests over, who were most likely angels from God. So of course you got to roll out the red carpet, but that would have taken a few hours back then. You got to bake the bread, got to kill a calf, prepare it, cook it, or maybe not cook it, who knows. So that took all day. So it was a get together. They said to him, Where is Sarah, your wife? And he said, There, in the tent. Well, where else would she be? Of course she's in the tent. Not that many places for married women to go back then. One of them said, I will certainly return to you about this time next year, and Sarah, your wife, will have a son. And Sarah heard it in the tent door, which was behind him. Now Abraham and Sarah were old and very advanced in age, and Sarah was well past childbearing, or so she thought. Therefore Sarah laughed to herself, saying, After I am so old, and my Lord is also old, shall I have pleasure? So she didn't believe it was going to happen. Now, keep in mind, these are angels who have been sent by God, or at least God's messengers. They're appearing as men. So these were special beings who had advanced medical technology and who probably could impregnate her using beaming technology. That's probably what they did. And, that's why they showed up to hang out with Abraham that day. And that's why they asked where Sarah was. That's how that happened. But Sarah had a little bit of sarcasm in her soul. She had a little bit of sarcasm, and as you'll hear in a few moments, um, God didn't like that too much. But hey, D. Lynn, how are you doing? Good to see you this morning. Dylan says, hi. Thanks for the time you take to do this. Absolutely amazing. Hope you have a great Sunday. Well, thank you, Dylan. Thank you for appreciating this reading. But I'll tell you, I probably enjoy it just as much as you do. I've always wanted to go through the Bible page by page. So I'm doing it now. At the ripe old age of 44, I'm doing it and I am having a blast doing it because just really speaking speaking the words of Christianity on a daily basis, it makes me feel so much better. It's enriched my life. I feel like it's keeping me on a positive track. Those of you who listen, maybe it's keeping you on a positive track too. And it's nice to just, have a reminder of all the history of humanity and how far we've come and whatnot, and how certain themes, regardless of advances in technology, never change. Things like what Sarah is going through, or Sarah, aka Sarai, the most beautiful woman, right? Abraham loves her to death, and she's got everything going for her, but the one thing that she doesn't have is the ability to conceive. But here, she and Abraham, they've been righteous. They've been doing the right thing for the most part. So God decides, all right, let me cut you all a break. I am going to make Sarah fertile because I'm God and I'm fabulous and I can do whatever it is that I want to do. And that's what happens. But again, Sarah doesn't believe it. So listen to this. This is great. So she's laughing to herself and she says, "After I am so old and my Lord is old also," meaning her husband, "shall I have pleasure?" In other words, she's like, "Man, I don't even think I want to have any kind of sex at this point. How am I going to have a kid? I'm old." Now she thinks she's old. And again, I want everyone to keep in mind that the lifespans of humans in biblical days were exceedingly long in certain people's cases, especially if you were a descendant of Adam. Adam himself lived close to 1,000 years. Noah lived hundreds and hundreds of years. Okay. So we're talking about descendants of them. Okay. So even though the lifespans were shortened, it seems, after the flood, the ability to live that long was still pretty close to the surface in their DNA. That would mean that they would be able to conceive for a fairly long time also. So just to continue, and now I'm at Genesis 18:13. Then the Lord said to Abraham, "Why did Sarah laugh and say, 'Shall I surely bear a child when I am old?' Is there anything too difficult for the Lord? At the appointed time, I will return to you. At this time next year, and Sarah will have a son." So the Lord didn't like that Sarah was being a bit, doubtful of the Lord's power. And really she shouldn't have been. Part of I think part of Sarah's problem is that she did become exceedingly angry for a long time because many of her female peers all had children. She didn't get to. She went through the whole thing with Hagar. It was horrible, but she shouldn't have doubted the Lord. And then she went as far as to try to deny she was doubtful. So listen to this, Genesis 18:15. Then Sarah denied it, saying, "I did not laugh," because she was afraid. And he said, "Yes, you did laugh." I love God in Genesis. I love God in Genesis. I love God all throughout the Bible, but seriously, God in Genesis, just there's so much that goes on emotionally between God and man, and God just having it at certain times. I mean, he got angry. That's when the whole flood thing happened. He did preserve Noah and his lineage, but still, God was pissed. And now you have God willing to grant this incredible miracle to Sarah, and she's going to sit there and doubt things and be like, well, I'm so old. How am I going to have a kid now? And it's like, well, God can make you young again if God wants to. God can do everything. It's nothing to God. Just snap fingers, not even snap fingers, blink, not even blink, and bam. But, so Sarah's a diva. She's a diva. That's probably why Abraham liked her. So now let's continue. We're still in Genesis 18. Now we're going to talk a little bit about Sodom and Gomorrah. And many of us know that story, but let's jump in. Then the men rose up and looked towards Sodom, and Abraham went with them to see them on their way. And these are still the men who are kind of men, but they're clearly messengers of God. That's why Abraham rolled out the red carpet for them and made Sarah make them cakes of bread and everything. But they came there not just to ensure that Sarah could have a child, but because they wanted to tell Abraham what they were getting ready to do when it came to Sodom and Gomorrah, because they weren't happy with Sodom and Gomorrah. Then the Lord said, should I hide from Abraham what I am doing? Since Abraham will surely become a great and mighty nation, and all the nations of earth will be blessed in him. I chose him, and he will instruct his children and his household after him to keep the way of the Lord by doing righteousness and justice, so that the Lord may bring to Abraham what he promised him. Then the Lord said, because the outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah is great, and because their sin is very grave, I will go down and see if what they have done is as bad as the outcry that has come to me. If not, I will know. The men turned away from there and went towards Sodom, but Abraham remained standing before the Lord. Then Abraham drew near and said, shall you also destroy the righteous with the wicked? What if there are 50 righteous in the city? Shall you also destroy and not spare the place for the 50 righteous who are in it? Far be it from you to do such a thing as this, to slay the righteous with the wicked, so that the righteous should be treated like the wicked. Far be it from you. Should not the judge of all the earth do right? So Abraham kind of knew what was going on, even though, that even though God didn't necessarily want him to know all the details. And keep in mind that Abraham most likely had friends and affiliates, maybe, business associates, plus his nephew and his family. They matriculated and they were in, this area, Sodom and Gomorrah. So Abraham's worried. He's like, oh my gosh, it can't be, it is bad. It's pretty bad what they're doing in those neighborhoods in that city. But maybe some down there are okay. And if there's some, maybe you can give them a chance to clean it up. So that's pretty much what Abraham was thinking, what he conveyed. So the Lord said, if I find if I find in Sodom 50 righteous within the city, then I will spare the entire place for their sakes. Then Abraham answered and said, I who am but dust and ashes have taken it upon myself to speak to the Lord. Suppose there were 5 less than 50 righteous. Will you destroy all the city for lack of 5? Oh, so, Abraham's even thinking about it at this point. He's like, well, maybe there's not even 50 people down there who are decent. Maybe, so he's trying to kind of negotiate a little bit with God, which is interesting when you think about it. And he says, if I find 45 there, I will not destroy it. And he spoke to him yet again and said, suppose there will be 40 found there. So this is the art of negotiation we're seeing here in Genesis 18, because Abraham likely knew, and he was trying. He's basically trying to save his friends and family. So there weren't that many, but he knew he had to do something, and so he started the bidding high, and now he's working it down, and he's like, God, please, please, please. There are a few. I can't even figure out the number right now exactly in my mind, but you have to give him a chance. So he, meaning God, says, I will not do it for the sake of 40. Then he said to him, let not the Lord be angry, and I will speak. Suppose there will be 30 found there. Again, he said, I will not do it if I find 30 there, because God knew at that point that there weren't even probably 30. He said, behold, I have undertaken to speak to the Lord. Suppose 20 are found there. He said, I will not destroy it for the sake of 20. Then he said, let not the Lord be angry, and I will speak only once more. Suppose 10 will be found there. Then he said, I will not destroy it, meaning the city, for the sake of 10. So the Lord went his way, and as soon as he stopped speaking to Abraham, and well, I'm sorry. So the Lord went his way as soon as he stopped speaking to Abraham, and Abraham returned to his place. All right. So Abraham was like, there might be 10 good people, maybe 10 in Sodom and Gomorrah. If there's 10, don't blow up the city. And God's like, all right, find me 10. There weren't 10. But y'all listening won't be able to learn what happens unless you open your Bible right now to Genesis 19 and read about Sodom and Gomorrah being destroyed, or you can check back in with me here tomorrow where we will go into Genesis 19. So we're going to stop here. Tomorrow we will go into all the details and everything about Sodom and Gomorrah being destroyed, what Abraham had to do to basically save his nephew, some after effects of that, and we'll just keep going. We're almost through Genesis. We are more than halfway through. More than halfway through. We are going to get through Genesis before the end of March. So stay tuned, everybody. Stay tuned. It's going to be a really fun year. This is going to be a great year. And I encourage all of you to do your own independent study of the Bible as well. You will find it dramatically changes your life for the better. And you'll find that reading the Bible enables you to see your peers, people in your life, a lot more clearly. You'll be able to figure out who exactly, without a doubt, does not need to be in your life. Once you start reading the Bible, unfortunately, there will be people in your life, whether you're reading it to yourself or reading it publicly, sharing it with your friends, there's going to be people who are demonically possessed, who don't want you to read the Bible, who will go as far as to say, oh, you're just pretending to be a Christian. You're just pretending to believe in God and the Bible. Well, that's because they're projecting and they don't believe in God or the Bible or Jesus Christ. But pay such people no mind because they're evil. Nowadays, there are so many people who are demonically possessed. And one of the greatest gateways to demonic possession is drugs and alcohol. I highly encourage those of you out there listening, keep drugs and alcohol out of your life as much as you humanly can. You will be happier, you will be healthier, you will be cleaner, you will be safer. One of my greatest mistakes in life was indulging in alcohol. Fortunately, it's a habit I've been able to break through the grace of God. There have been some people who have known me over the years, and they've seen me just quit. And they've said to me, they're like, "You have amazing willpower. You were never that big of a drinker to begin with, but you have a lot of willpower." But you know what? I don't just give myself credit, I give credit to God. I believe that God has needed me to do certain things in my life, which is why I've been as blessed as I've been. And I believe that for some reason, God needs me to do this page by page reading of the Bible, not just for myself, but for many others, because I have this platform that's fairly highly trafficked. And the only way that I could have really done this effectively is through an incredibly clean, sober, and healthy mindset, which is why I believe God gave me the strength and the willpower to knock alcohol and nicotine out of my life. It hasn't just been me. It's definitely been a divine force working in my life because I feel so good, so energized, and so happy. I mean, for me, it, it's kind of funny because for me, extreme sobriety is greater than I think any sort of high I've ever had. It's amazing to me. And I wish others could feel as amazing as I do. But not everybody's meant to feel everything. And I do know that. And thanks for staying here and listening, Dylan. I didn't know you were still here. Thank you. Yeah, I think that for me, I think that this has been a bit of a miracle that I've undergone here. And yeah, God does see everything. God sees everything, God hears everything, and that's why it's pointless to feel frustrated. I'm somebody who often feels frustrated when it comes to things, especially if things are out of my control or out of my power. But I'm truly learning to give it all over to God. Something that frustrates me is when I see people blatantly lying about me, telling some of the most craziest things about me, and me just wanting to basically jump through YouTube and choke the living hell out of them for doing so. But I'm learning to just give that over to God and be like, God, it's in your hands. I know that you will do what's right by me because there's nothing I can do to stop these liars at this stage. I've tried and I've done all I can. It is hurtful for me because I live a very good life. I do right by people. And to have demonically possessed drug addicts talking crap about me and then seeing people believe them or concur with them or feed into it, that for me is very frustrating and very hurtful. But day by day, as I read the Bible more and more, day by day, as my body heals from the alcohol abuse and the nicotine abuse, day by day, as I exercise more and more, day by day, as I see my physical form renew itself, I just kind of smile and I feel better about it. And I feel like, well, I'm going to outlive these jerks who are desecrating my reputation. So, you know, but I'm only human. I'm only human. Someone in the chat says, I believe in a higher power. However, I don't believe it was a man that had powers and could create miracles. Well, everything that man does, God works through, okay? All of us are extensions of God, at least from my perspective. So I believe that sometimes God does work through men, through humans, to conduct miracles. But you're entitled to your opinion. Dylan says, never let the dark spirits bring you down. It's very hard, and some days are harder, but you are stronger and it will always get better. Thank you. Thank you very much. And yeah, God is bigger than all of this. I agree. All right. So today was a fun reading and a light discussion. Thank you for, those in the chat. Thank you, Dylan, especially for chatting with me today. And I'm glad that you caught me live instead of the replay. I did this reading a little bit later in the morning than I have the past few days because I've been waking up really early. And usually when I first get up, I want to do the reading, but today was a little bit different. So I'll end up figuring out the right sweet spot time in the day to do these. I will figure it out. I'll figure it out. But we're getting there. We're getting there. So again, tomorrow morning, we'll be getting into Genesis 19. So everyone have a wonderful, wonderful Sunday. I most definitely will. And I will talk to you later. Once more, I'm Alexandra. Bye bye.